Evan stood at the edge of the grand alien hall, his hands behind his back, his head lowered. The rule for humans inside the Voran royal palace was clear. No talking, no sudden movement, no contact with the royal family. He followed the rule every day. It kept him alive. Hundreds of tall alien nobles filled the hall, wearing bright silver robes and sharp crowns. Their glowing eyes looked at Evan like he was a small, unimportant thing. He did not react. He had learned long ago that reacting only made things worse. Today was a day of the air, a ceremony where the queen's daughter would appear in front of the nobles. Evan was only there to carry a tray of ceremonial stones. Nothing more. But the moment Princess Lyra entered the hall, everything changed. She walked slowly, her steps soft, her expression calm. Her hair glowed under the crystal lights. Her eyes were gentle but distant, like she was searching for something she could never reach. Everyone bowed. Evan did not. Humans were not allowed to bow. They were only allowed to stand still. As Lyra reached the center of the hall, something slipped from her wrist, a thin, beautiful bracelet made of blue metal. It hit the floor with a gentle clink. No one moved to help her. Not the nobles. Not the guards. No one. They watched her struggle to pick it up with one hand while holding her long ceremonial robe with the other. Some nobles even laughed quietly. Lyra did not react. She simply lowered her gaze and bent down again. Evan felt something twist inside him. He knew that feeling. The same feeling he had when his little sister, who was deaf, had been ignored by people who pretended not to understand her. His hands shook. He knew the rule. Humans must stay silent. Humans must not interfere. But he could not stand still. Slowly, carefully, Evan took one step forward. Then another. The guards tensed, their weapons rising an inch. But Evan ignored them. He knelt, picked up the fallen bracelet, and lifted it toward Lyra. She looked at him, truly looked at him, for the first time. Evan didn't speak. He couldn't. Instead, he raised his free hand, and he began to sign. Simple signs. Slow signs. The kind his sister used to understand when she was scared. "Are you okay?" He signed gently. Lyra's eyes widened in shock. Her lips parted. Her fingers trembled. She understood the signs. Before Evan could move away, a ripple of energy passed through the hall. All nobles turned toward the throne, where Queen Adioverse stood frozen. Her eyes were wide, her breath uneven, her face pale. Her daughter knew sign language, a language the queen had tried to teach her long ago, and failed. The queen stepped down from her throne, one slow step at a time. Tears gathered in her sharp, glowing eyes. Then she whispered, voice shaking, "Human, do that again." The entire hall fell silent. Guards lowered their weapons. Nobles stopped breathing. Evan slowly raised his hands again, the moment he began to sign. The queen broke into tears. For a long moment, no one in the royal hall moved. Even the air felt frozen as Evan slowly signed again, his hands steady but his heart beating fast. Princess Lyra watched his fingers with wide, shining eyes. It was the first time someone had spoken to her in her own silent world. Queen Adioverse stood only a few steps away, her breath shaky. The nobles stared at her in confusion. They had never seen their queen cry before. Not once. Not in years of war. Not in years of ruling. But now, tears slowly rolled down her face. "Continue," she whispered, her voice soft, almost breaking. Evan signed again. "You dropped this." Then he gently placed the bracelet in Lyra's hand. The princess held it tightly, her fingers trembling. She tried to respond, but her hands moved with fear. Fear of being wrong. Fear of being judged. Fear of being watched. Evan noticed her shaking. He smiled softly, not with his mouth, but with his eyes. He signed slowly. "It's okay. Take your time." Lyra took a deep breath. Her shoulders relaxed. And then, with careful movements, she signed back, "Thank you." A small, shy sign, but it was real. It was the first time she had ever signed to someone other than her mother, and her mother had given up long ago. A sharp gasp echoed through the hall. One noble stepped forward aggressively. "This is disrespect," he shouted. "A human cannot stand beside the princess." More nobles joined. "The queen must punish him. Humans cannot teach our royalty. Remove him at once." The queen raised her hand, silencing them instantly. "No one," she said softly, "touches him." The whole fell silent. Evan lowered his gaze, expecting anger. But the queen stepped closer, studying his hands with deep emotion. "You used an old sign," she whispered. "One I made for my daughter when she was a baby. Many here don't know it exists." Evan blinked in surprise. He had learned it from an old holo book. He didn't know it belonged to the queen. Lyra stepped between them, placing her hand on her mother's arm. She signed something with slow, careful movements. The queen inhaled sharply, understanding every sign. She said, "I want him to stay." The nobles murmured loudly, "This is impossible. A human with a princess. This will destroy tradition." But the queen ignored them all. Without warning, she took Evan's arm, gently, not as a ruler, but as a mother, and said, "You will walk beside my daughter during the ceremony." Evan froze. The nobles froze. Even the guards did not know what to do. Princess Lyra smiled, a small, innocent smile that lit up her whole face. She signed to Evan, "You speak my language." Evan signed back, "I will teach you more." Lyra's eyes sparkled with a hope she had never felt before. And as they walked together toward the center of the hall, the queen watched them, her heart filling with something she thought she had lost long ago. A second chance. After the ceremony ended, the hall slowly emptied. The nobles left with angry whispers. The guards stayed tense. But the queen kept watching her daughter and the human who had somehow broken a rule stronger than any law. When the last noble disappeared behind the golden doors, Queen Arava turned to Evan. "You, follow me." Her tone was calm, but heavy, like she was about to reveal something she had carried for years. Evan nodded. He glanced at Princess Lyra. She gave a small, encouraging smile and signed. "Don't worry. Mother is kind inside." Evan followed the queen through long corridors filled with glowing symbols. At the end was a private chamber with ancient tapestries and soft blue lights. Inside, the queen removed her crown and sat down, the first sign she was speaking not as a ruler, but as a mother. "Sit," she told him. Evan sat quietly. For a long moment, she said nothing. She stared at her hands, hands that once held a tiny baby who could not hear her lullabies. "Lyra was born deaf," the queen said softly. "Our people did not accept it." Evan listened carefully. She was called unfit, weak, a broken A. Her voice sharpened with pain. The nobles believed the next ruler must hear voices, commands, threats, sound of battle. They say a deaf princess cannot rule a world with war in its blood. Evan felt anger rising in him. They saw Lyra as less, just like humans sometimes saw his own sister as less. "I tried to teach her sign language," the queen continued. "I invented symbols only she and I knew. But I failed. I was too busy ruling, fighting, protecting the throne. She grew older and learned nothing more. And I—" Her voice cracked. "I gave up." Evan shook his head gently. He signed. "You didn't fail. She just needed someone patient." The queen stared at his hands. She didn't know the signs well anymore, but she understood enough. Her eyes softened, the cold ruler gone, replaced by a worried mother. "Tell me something," she asked. "How did you learn the old signs?" Evan's voice was quiet. "My sister was deaf. I learned for her. She died when I was young, but I never stopped teaching myself. I wanted to speak her language, even if she wasn't here." The queen closed her eyes. The pain in his story touched the pain she carried. After a moment, she stood and walked to a tall window overlooking the Silver City. "There is something you must know," she said. "The nobles want to remove Lyra as heir. They want to choose another leader, someone who can hear. They are meeting tomorrow to discuss it." Evan sat straight, shock shooting through him. "Remove her. Replace her. Erase her future." He signed quickly. "Lyra can rule. She only needs help." The queen turned to him, her expression sharp but hopeful. "Can you teach her? Signs, confidence, communication, anything that gives her strength." Evan did not hesitate. "Yes," he signed. "I will teach her everything." For the first time, the queen smiled, a real, grateful smile. Then, she said gently, "My daughter finally has a voice." And in that moment, Evan made a silent promise. Lyra would not lose her throne. Not while he stood beside her. The next day arrived faster than anyone expected. The great council hall was filled again, but this time, the atmosphere was colder, sharper, filled with angry whispers. The nobles stood in tight groups, their expressions stiff with disapproval. Princess Lyra entered quietly, her hands folded, her face calm. But she was not alone. Evan walked 2 steps behind her, silent but steady, like a shield made of calm strength. Dozens of nobles gasped loudly. "A human again! This is unacceptable. He is corrupting the princess." Queen Arava raised her hand. Silence returned instantly, but it was a tense silence. The oldest noble stepped forward, voice cold. "Your Majesty, we demand the princess be replaced as heir. She cannot hear commands. She cannot lead armies. She cannot." He stopped, because Lyra stepped forward. Her eyes were sharp, clear, brighter than they had ever been. She lifted her hands, and she began to sign. Slow, confident, sure. The whole watched her, confused. No one understood her signs. Evan stepped behind her and began signing the same movements in perfect sync. He acted like her echo, making each sign larger and clearer. Queen Arava stepped down from her throne. Her voice broke the silence. "I will translate." The nobles froze. Lyra continued signing, and the queen spoke her words. "You say I cannot lead because I cannot hear. You say I am weak because I live in silence. But silence is not weakness." Lyra's hands moved faster, stronger. "I see what you do not see. I notice what you ignore. I understand without sound because I listen with my eyes." A noble interrupted angrily. "This is emotional trickery. She cannot rule." Lyra turned her gaze toward him, calm, unshaken, and signed again. Evan mirrored her perfectly. Queen Arava translated. "A leader is not someone who hears the loudest voice. A leader is someone who understands the quietest one." A wave of murmurs spread across the hall. Lyra's final signs were gentle, but full of power. "For years, no one spoke my language. But one human did. He saw me, he understood me, and he taught me to speak again." Queen Arava's voice cracked as she translated the last line. "Someone finally heard me." The queen could not hold back anymore. A tear slipped down her cheek. Then another. Then she covered her face with both hands and cried, in front of every noble, every guard, every witness. The whole fell into stunned silence. No one had ever seen the queen break before. She lowered her hands, eyes shining. "My daughter," she said, voice trembling, "has more strength in her silence than all of you have in your noise." She pointed at Evan. This human gave her voice back, and from this day forward he will remain by her side, as her teacher, her protector, her chosen companion. The nobles bowed their heads, not in agreement, but in defeat. Lyra turned to Evan and signed. "Thank you." Evan signed back. "I'll always be here." And as the queen watched them together, her daughter standing tall, the human standing proud, she felt hope rise inside her, bright and warm. A future where silence was not a weakness, but a new kind of power.